Welcome to another video. As promised, I'm going to go over some simple steps you need to do when recycling an old PC for sale or donation for educational purposes, or it doesn't really matter what you do with it afterwards, but these are the steps I do when recycling a PC. Some of these steps are more critical than others, and it all depends on what you plan to do with the machine. If it's for personal use, you can skip a few of these steps. First, you should always open up and clean the machine, since who knows what this machine's been used for up to this point. Just give it a quick dust, replace any parts that are broken, see what upgrades are available, that kind of thing. In case of this machine, I just opened it up and gave it a clean. I'd already done this previously, so there wasn't a lot to do. As you can see, this machine can only take a single slot graphics card, which is a shame. But it can take up to 16 gig of RAM, and the CPU can be upgraded, so there is some upgrade options here. It's just regarding graphics cards, you're going to be stuck with probably a GT 1030. I don't think there's any faster half height single slot cards out there. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty certain the GT 1030 is the fastest. But this step's not that massively important. It hasn't got to be spotless. Just clean enough and get rid of most of the dust. Now at this point you might be tempted to just go install the operating system and some software and be done with it, but depending on what you're using this for and if you're donating it or selling it, you should really make sure the hard drive or SSD is blank. For this I use shredOS. It comes with various types of methods to wipe a hard drive, and it's based on some older projects like DBAN and stuff like that. But the reason why I use shredOS is because it comes with the Gutman wipe, which, while it doesn't actually guarantee you can wipe SSDs with it, and you should really be using software from the SSD's manufacturer to do this, there are some times when you could use a debranded SSD, and this is good enough. So it can wipe SSDs or hard drives. As you can see, it takes a very long time to wipe this 500 gig hard drive. It will take about 42 hours, which is quite a long time. So make sure you set enough time aside to do this. At this point you can go install an operating system. I'm going to be using Windows 10 and Mint for this, because I want to show a free version and a paid operating system. Important to note, if Windows 10 asks for a license key during installation, you can most of the time just bypass it. This machine itself came with Windows 8 Pro, so I'm going to be installing Windows 10 Pro, and it normally activates itself using the license key, so give that a try first before putting a key in. You can always add the key in later. At this point I'll just go install some basic software for just basic general use, LibreOffice, VLC and things like that. It's also worth at this point giving the memory a quick test if you haven't already. Memtest 86 is quite good, bootable CD or USB stick, but if you have Windows installed you can use the built-in one, which is pretty quick and does a good enough job. If there's any issues it will let you know. Worth checking the smart data on the hard drive at this point for any issues, and I also like to run PC Mark through the machine and stress test it using CPU-Z, just to make sure the temperatures are okay and the fact it can complete the whole PC Mark test, which pretty much checks everything in terms of general use. Next, of course, got to try some games, so pop Steam on there. Installed Portal, Half-Life 2 and Streets of Rage 4. All these games run absolutely fine. I had a slight issue with, I don't know if it was the capture card or what was going on here, but I could only get 30 FPS with Portal and Half-Life 2. VSync had to be enabled, otherwise I got this strange shutter effect going on. Didn't have it with Streets of Rage 4, and when I was using Linux later, no problems there, so I think this was the capture card causing an issue. And of course you could always whack in a GT 710 or GT 1030 to get around this problem anyway. So the performance is pretty good for this kind of machine. It's only an i3, so it's only a dual core, and it does only have a RAM. But what happens if you don't want to install Windows or don't have a license key and you want to recycle machine without any cost to your person? Well, in those cases I use Linux Mint. It's perfectly good for educational purposes, and whoever receives the machine could always install Windows themselves later at their own cost. But Linux works just great, and is actually a simpler process to install than Windows 10 is these days. Just give it install, whack the USB stick in. It already comes with LibreOffice and those kind of things installed. I normally still install VLC, just because I find that it works more often than not with a lot of things. And other than that, Linux is pretty much set up. It uses considerably less RAM. Windows 10 was using pretty much 4 gig the entire time, whereas Linux Mint, as you can see here, is only using 1.5 to 2 gig. So much more optimized for older hardware such as this. And of course, let's install Steam and try Streets of Rage, Portal and Half-Life 2 again. Now, the performance here is actually better for Half-Life 2 and Portal because we don't have that shuttering effect, so I can turn VSync off. We're getting a good nearly 100 FPS in Half-Life 2, which is amazing, really. In Streets of Rage 4, and I saw it in Portal and Half-Life 2 in certain places as well, there was a slight stutter here and there where it seemed to be the hard drive was struggling to keep up. So, not entirely sure what's going on there, since that shouldn't be happening, but I'm guessing it's a Linux only issue because that didn't happen in Windows. But these 3 games, for example, are perfectly playable on this system, and whack an SSD in there and those problems should go away. So that's brilliant. So let's talk about costs, shall we? This machine here cost me, I think, £35 with shipping, and this monitor I had lying around. In fact, you may have seen it in some other videos. I do still use it, but you can get a 22-inch monitor like this, which is only 1680 by 1050, for about £20 to £25 with delivery in the UK. So this whole setup only costs about £60 to £70, which is amazing. Of course, you have to add a keyboard and mouse in, and possibly a webcam if you're using it for educational purposes. You can get a webcam reasonably cheap these days, about £10. Keyboard and mouse, similar cost. And one advantage with this monitor, on the bottom we have a built-in speaker. It's pretty awful, but it's better than absolutely nothing at all. So this machine is brilliant for educational setups and someone's first computer when they're learning. It's a damn sight better than what I had when I was starting out, and if I received anything even close to this back then, I would have been more than happy. My first computer that I got that was mine was a 660 megahertz Celeron, and that was in 2003. Yeah, 2003. So not exactly a fast machine. So that's what I had, and I was more than happy with it. 17-inch CRT, 660 megahertz Celeron, slow as anything, Windows ME, but it worked. So if you have a machine lying around similar to this, consider donating it. I know where this one's going. I know someone that could really do with this at the moment, because they are currently off school. Well, they actually are having to go back into school. So if I give them this, they no longer have to go in and they can learn at home, which is much better. I mean, the only issue then is internet connectivity. I know they have the internet, so it's not a problem for them. but I know a lot of people won't have it, but a computer by itself is good enough because it allows you to do some learning if you have some correct software. So that's all I wanted to show for today. Once again, thank you for watching. If you have any questions about this machine or this setup, or any steps that I possibly missed because I didn't show everything that I did, please let me know. And as always, comment, like and subscribe below, and I will see you in the next one. So thanks again and goodbye.